to the show with your friend and mine. So tell me, Doctor Squee, who's it gonna be this time? We like to hear you talk, but we love to hear you listen. And if you are not subscribed, you won't know what you're missing. So welcome to the Doctor Squee Show. Welcome to the Doctor Squee Show. Welcome to the Doctor Squee Show. Headphones up. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to the Doctor Squee Show. I'm Dr. Squee and this is my show, hopefully by all the gods, going out live on radio as well as video on social media. We'll see. Like, if you're hearing this, please do just let me know. It's just nice to know, especially someone on the radio. I can see 2 viewers on the video, so I'm going to trust that bit's working. But we'll never mind that now. My guest tonight, live, he is an award-winning comedian. You may know him from such shows as Northern News, his own podcast with Amy Gladhill. He's also been on the News Quiz. Pardon me, I'm getting slightly distracted by my own echo here, but we will battle through. Comedy Central and a host of other things, which we'll get into in just a minute. Please welcome to the Doctor Squee Show, Mr. Ian Smith. Ian, how are you, sir?
Hello, I'm good, thanks. Yeah, how are you?
Very good, thanks. And I love the fact that before we went on air, we started things off very British, asking about the weather, which I believe which Northerners burst into flames in.
Yeah, I'm a very pale man, so I sort of get sunburn incredibly quickly and embarrassingly. So yeah, I'm just sort of staying indoors and becoming very, very hot. Like I'm like a tomato plant.
I mean, it shows you how often we get heat in this country. I moved my desk over. I used to use my studio as an office as well because I work from home. Recently finished, so I changed things around, and I didn't even think about light glare. The idea of this yellow object bursting through the window didn't seem likely.
Yeah, it's amazing. My girlfriend doesn't have curtains. She doesn't have curtains in her house, so the sun just comes through. And you can't escape it. She wakes up whenever the sun rises, so she's getting up at about 5 in the morning at the minute. It's very stressful.
I can imagine. And when they don't sleep, you don't sleep, and vice versa.
Yeah.
We've got a good evening from Sarah Kirk. Hello, Sarah. Thank you very much for watching. So, sir, I want to start off. I always, of course, Google my guests, find out what's happening for them. When I Googled you, I've never seen this particular category for someone. I've had comedian, stand-up. It specifically said solo comedian. Is Google trying to throw some shade that you're either antisocial or it doesn't think your relationships are going to work? Like, this just seems nasty, quite frankly.
Yeah, I didn't realize it did that. Yeah, I guess the podcast to do is with someone else. Maybe they know something I don't know. Maybe she's about to leave and set up her own podcast.
It's Amy's way of letting you know.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Well, yeah, I guess that gives me a sort of mysterious vibe, like a sort of solo explorer or something.
I feel like if you're going to kind of really steer into it, though, I feel like you've got the look. You've just got to wear black all the time and just be a bit more mysterious and edgy.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have any props, I don't think, that can help with that. I'm going to put some sunglasses on.
Hey, I like it. You are looking a bit Northern Explosion now, like the Northern music scene.
Yeah.
So, sir, it boasts on your website quite correctly a multiple award winning. Can you talk us a little bit through your trophy cabinet? This is very impressive.
Oh, well, one of them is not good. The first award I won was a new act competition, I think in like 2009. So it's a big old gap. But it was Newbury Comedy Festival's new act competition. So that's one of the key things you do as a comedian when you say multi-award winning is you don't go into the specifics about the awards, because if you do that, they sound less impressive.
Should I move on?
No, but yeah, that one wasn't very good. But I won a couple when I did the Edinburgh Fringe in 2017. I won an Amuse Moose Comedy Award and a 3 Weeks Editors Award for the show. So that was very nice. It was my fourth show, and I'd had like a year off. So whenever you have like a year off the Fringe, you start thinking, oh, maybe I've lost it, maybe I've got no more anecdotes left. So it's quite nice for that one to be the one that goes well. Kind of shows that having a rest sometimes is quite nice.
And I mean, I feel like you're one of these comedians who I know your experience will not have been this, but it feels like you've suddenly exploded onto TV and radio quite a lot recently. But I know these overnight success are many years of grind and many years of work. Does it feel like for you, you've recently, your profile has expanded, or is it just, I've noticed you more?
Yeah, I think so. I think, yeah, I guess I've been like plugging away for quite a while, and a few things have happened recently. And I guess a big thing has been doing the news quiz on Radio 4. That was something that I was in the writer's room for quite a while. Like I did trial shifts in the writer's room, then got to be like a regular writer. And then it got to the point where I was kind of asking to be on the show and maybe trying to step away from the writer's room. Yeah, and eventually kind of got on that show. My first one was during lockdown, and sort of did a series for a couple of series. And the last 2 series I've been on it 3 times on each series. And it's a show that I've loved for a long time, and really kind of worked and been persistent with saying, please, can I be on it? So, yeah, it's nice to get that. And the podcast with Amy seems to be going really well and getting a bit of attention and stuff. So that's helping a lot.
Yes, I do want to get onto the to the Northern News in a little bit. Sorry, I did get the poster up. There you go. Everyone do please check that out wherever you check out your podcast. In fact, I can get that long enough there. I love the fact that you've got the Ghoul Times on the front there.
Yeah. The initial plan was to get my family to send me the Ghoul Times every week, but the postage kind of cost and admin just wasn't fair on them for that to happen.
I did love it. I think there's something about that when you move away from your home area. My mum, for years, because she's from Port Russian Island, which is in the north, and she would just get every week, when I was a kid, she would get all the newspapers over from Ireland sent from like the local news from Port Rush sent out over every week.
Yeah, and it's a lot of postage, especially nowadays.
Yeah, I don't know how they afforded it. But getting back to news quiz, did you come on during the Zaltzman era, or was it under Miles Japel?
Yeah, so when I was a writer on it, I would write for Miles. So there'd be a writer's room, and we'd all kind of chip in with jokes for his monologues. But yeah, the first time I appeared on it was maybe Andy's second series or something. Yeah, Andy's always been very supportive. You know, he'll like drop you an email after my first one, and you know, I think he's certainly helped push me to get on it regularly. And you know, if you like someone, we'll put in a word for them and stuff. So yeah, I've only ever been on it with Andy. Yeah, and it must have been like, I think he's done 6 or 7 series already now.
I've been a fan of the show. Well, I go back to the Toxvic era, but I really felt like when Andy Zaltzman came in, he was the first person to really change the format. Like there were set things which had to be part of the news quiz before that. You had to have the end, and he just brought in this kind of really crazy energy and feel to it. Yeah,
I think because I really loved it when Miles did it, and I loved what Miles did with it. But I think when they had a series where there was lots of guest hosts, and yeah, it did feel like people were very tied to like everyone talks, and then afterwards I say my 5 jokes, and then we move on, and we've got the newspaper headlines coming in. But yeah, Andy's got such a distinct style with it that I think that's what you should do if you're like taking the helm of that show. You've got to keep like the essence of it, but you've got to make it your thing. I guess you want to feel like it's your era, and then it moves on to someone else. But yeah, you don't just want to do the same thing as everyone else. And Andy's got so many surreal flights of fancy that I don't think anyone else could do.
Yeah, I mean, I've always listened to his podcast, The Bugle, and I think if anything, since John Oliver as his co-host has left, and it's kind of Andy's vehicle with other comedians coming on, which is so generous. And I believe you've guested on that one as well.
Yeah, a few times now.
Yeah. And I just love the fact I feel like even more so now, he just goes on these surreal rants. I almost have to replay them just to catch every little joke and nuance of weirdness. What's it like being in the room when he's coming up with all this stuff?
Yeah, well, it's great listening to his monologues, because I do think it's when you're first doing the show and you're a little bit nervous, and you're sat in the radio theater in front of, I don't know how many people there are there. It must be like 500 or more. And you kind of feel like people are looking at you a bit and assessing whether you're going to be funny or whether you look confident. And I think if you're just laughing at the show as well, it really kind of warms you to the audience. And it's much easier to just have fun and get involved when you are enjoying being there and like getting swept up in not knowing what he's going to say next or how long these kind of rants are going to go on for.
Yeah, it's really a thing to behold. Just the density. I've never seen such density of not only jokes but surrealist jokes per minute.
Yeah.
It makes whole words or like a whole language for some of the jokes.
Yeah, and more obscure cricket references than you know what to do. I don't understand a lot of what he says when he talks about cricket, but I maybe need to watch the Ashes and then I can understand some of what he's saying.
I think he's trained me to kind of like accept that, because like I don't follow cricket, or I'm not really a sports guy, but he just talks such wonderful nonsense all the time. When he just talks about cricket, it's like, oh, that's just other nonsense. Like, I'm sure it makes sense to someone, but
yeah. I think it's nice just to listen to anyone being really enthusiastic about a thing that they love in a very positive way. You do get kind of caught up in going, well, it must be good. It must be amazing.
Yeah, and I think you can sort of like get it from if you're a comedy aficionado, you can kind of get the beat. So when he brings up an obscure cricketer, you can sort of transpose that kind of reference, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
On to Northern News, though. Let's get into that. I do want to talk about some of your other work, but it's absolutely wonderful. When did you start working with Amy? Is she someone who you've done stand-up with before?
Yes, we've gigged together a fair few times, but also in Edinburgh for the Fringe. There's a couple of years where we lived with another comedian called David Callahan, and get along with those guys so well. And we'd be sat kind of joking about things and talking about comedy. And I just really loved that environment. I sometimes think as a comedian, you're just doing gigs and you're by yourself on a train there and back. And those kind of Edinburgh flats, you kind of have such like a warm atmosphere. So I really wanted to do something with those guys. And we did a pilot with the BBC with the three of us. But then kind of various things taking a long time and lockdowns and you know, me and Amy were in London and David's up north, and we were keen to do something like in person where we could film it. But yeah, so just kind of knowing Amy and knowing her stand up and then living together in Edinburgh a few years and just getting on so well. And I think those podcasts are, I think, always so much better when it's two people who are genuinely friends rather than a couple of comedians that are producers gone, or they look good together, or they both have a profile or something. I think you can always tell when there's a genuine relationship there.
Yeah, and you seem to have a kind of like really natural chemistry, which really works for the show. And I also love the fact that, I mean, like, correct me if I'm wrong, is Amy the one who plays mother a bit, and you're the one who comes in and just kind of goes in with the jokes?
I guess maybe a little bit. I think I'm just quite unfocused, and Amy's probably like a little bit more professional than me. But the last few episodes, I think Amy's been losing her mind a little bit. She's just singing songs and doing impressions of quite obscure things. So I think the podcast is getting to us both a little bit now.
For anyone who hasn't listened, these are the most obscure and fun news stories from the north. I love the way you describe it in the trailer. It's like most of them are crimes.
Yeah. There was one. Yeah, I saw a headline that I thought was funny on the Ghoul Times website about someone who was shoplifting, and they've kind of been put in prison for a little bit, and it said that they've been put in prison just to give everyone a bit of a break. So they haven't done anything bad enough in one event, but they just do it so often that they've just gone, people just need a bit of a break from this guy. And I thought it'd be funny to talk about that in the podcast. And then I saw the picture and I was like, oh, well, I absolutely know that person from school. So I don't want to. And I think he's a really nice guy. Obviously, maybe some of the shop owners of Go would disagree with me. But yeah, there's quite a few crime-based things where I think, well, I can't talk about that because I know the person involved.
So you have to change the name to protect your schoolmates.
Yeah.
I did love one from this week's show. You had the case that there was a guy who was in kebabs for a year to raise money for charity.
Yeah.
And then you guys did the sums and worked out he basically broke even.
Yeah, the amount the kebabs weren't included. I thought they were giving him the kebabs, but yeah, I think he must have raised about like £6 or something.
I mean, either that or he's just spent $1,000 on kebabs and found an excuse to do it, and then raised money from other people to pay the charity.
Yeah, because I wonder if that's what happened. I wonder if he sort of took all that money from everyone and then said the profit goes to charity, and he's only given £5, but he's had free kebabs. Because that's quite a good way. In a cost of living crisis, you could say to someone, I'm going to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day for a year for charity, and you raise the money for it, and then you just pay for your meals. And I don't know if I've thought that one through.
I thought maybe he went the other route. He he wanted. I mean, basically, he'd been wasting a lot of his money on kebabs. His girlfriend wasn't happy for him. He's going, I've got to find a way that she's going to get off my back for this. It's like, what if this was raising money for charity? She goes, well, if that was the case, that'd be different. I think he just had a whip round of having a year of spending all their savings on kebabs.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he certainly hasn't done it for a normal reason. Whatever it is, it's something suspicious.
Is there a favorite story of yours from the show?
Oh, my favorite one, because at the time I couldn't read the headline without crying because I was just laughing so much. But it was about a head teacher at a school who was coming in drunk quite a lot. And the more you read the story, the more it does sound like quite a serious situation. But the headline was about something one of the kids said to the head teacher. So the headline was, student tells teacher that he's chunked out of his bean. And I've never heard that phrase before, but apparently the kid went up to the head teacher and said, I'm not being funny or out, sir, but you look absolutely chunked out of your bean. And I couldn't read chunked out of your bean without just crying. Yeah, it just become just a sentence for me that I've had to like really get over that period in my life where I couldn't bring myself to say that sentence. But yeah, I just can't imagine the confidence of a kid going up to the head teacher and going, "You're chunked out of your bean, sir." But yeah, that's my favorite. I think.
I think I want to use that, and like I want an excuse to use that tomorrow. Like I'm going to find like just a moment, like, man, you just chunked out your bean.
Yeah. Yeah, my dream is that the podcast gets big enough that we can have merchandise, and chunked out your bean is on there.
I think that was sadly before Amy started doing the tune. So I think you've got to see what she can do with that. I think she could get a record out of that one.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've got a lot of ambitions that might not happen, but one of them is to make a record of all the songs that we've sung so far, and some of Amy's sound effects that she's provided. One of her most recent ones was urinating in a bin. She did a good impression of what that sounds like.
Yes.
She's got a real hidden talent for that.
That was in a sandwich shop, wasn't it?
Oh, I can't even remember because we've recorded.
Sandwich shop, something like that.
Yeah, we've recorded a few of them in bulk. So sometimes people after an episode will tweet something or text me something, and I'll have no idea what they're talking about. I have to listen back to the podcast myself because someone messaged me and said, "I was the girl in the cave with the shoes." Ha ha ha! And I just thought, I've got no idea what you mean. So I just replied, going,
"This morning, actually."
Yeah. Oh, do you know what they're on about?
I think there was something about Amy was saying about the cave where it was one of you. It was you or Amy was saying that you were allowed into a cave. I think it was Amy, and it was kind of a very dangerous gap to try and get through. But a friend of hers had the key to the cave, which was a bit of an unusual thing of itself.
Yeah.
I think it was. I don't think it was the guest correspondent that week, or it might have been Izzy City. It's one of the two.
Yeah. Well, I might have to listen back to some of the episodes after this. It'd be interesting to know what I've said.
I love it. And yeah, we should talk about some of the guests you've had on. So I mentioned Izzy City there. You've had Rosie Jones. You've had Nish Kumar. A wealth of wonderful guests.
Yeah, we've been really lucky with people coming on. Yeah, we thought it might be really difficult to get people, but I think one of our things is we just call people and for about 15 minutes on the phone. So people have to do so little work. We'll just call them up, ask them about the North, and then they're gone. So yeah, we've had some really good people. Tim Key spoke for so long that we put extra stories of his on the kind of Patreon for the podcast, because I think he spoke for about half an hour and we only needed him like 5 minutes worth of content. So yeah, he's brilliant. You can just kind of let him talk and listen. It's always very funny.
And one of the hooks of the show is, of course, you guys have been living up in London for a very long time now. What's kind of like the thing you miss most from the North, and what's the best about living in the South now?
I don't know. I've tried to talk about this a bit in stand-up, really, that I don't... I sort of don't really mind where I am location-wise, as long as there's friends around and stuff to do. But yeah, I think the space of the North is a lot better. Like, you know, just being in the centre of London or being on the tube after a while sort of grinds you down, not being able to go to a park and have a bit of grass where you're not in such close proximity to about like 50 other people doing the same thing. Yeah, like I had a little walk in Goole that I would do during lockdown, just along the riverbank of Goole. So it's nice to have those things. I think if you do anything like that in London, there's hundreds of other people doing it with you. But yeah, at the same time, I do love being in London for so much to do, and especially as a comedian, just being able to gig like a couple of times in a night if you want, and yeah, just always feel like you can go to the theatre or go somewhere different to eat. Like, yeah, there's just so much going on.
And are the audiences any different?
I don't think so. I used to get kind of scared about that in when I was starting out doing gigs up north. Lots of northern comedians would say, "Oh God, like London's hard. They don't want to laugh in London. They just don't want to laugh." Like they kind of paint London as full of incredibly miserable people who go to comedy with a kind of grudge against comedians. But I think it was just because they had a bad gig the one time they went to London, and they tell everyone that. But yeah, I don't think there's like a massive difference. There's a few places like Liverpool and Belfast I find have like quite strong individual identities, so they can be a bit tougher to play if you don't get it right, but maybe more rewarding if you feel loved by them.
Yeah. And taking you back to the earlier days of your comedy, who were the kind of comedians which you were touring with? Kind of what were some of those earlier gigs like for you?
Well, probably a bit different to new comedians now because I was gigging up north. Like in London, there's so many open mic gigs where you're on with maybe 20, 25 comedians all doing 5 minutes each. But I was like on in the middle of kind of pro lineups where there'd be a professional compare and kind of big first and second act. Like I think my third gig, Jeff Norcott was opening and Russell Kane was closing. And this is when they weren't established acts, but they were very good comedians. So being on in the kind of middle of that, it sort of pushed you on to do better. And there were times when I was just clearly not anywhere near that sort of level when I was starting out. But it's quite useful to do that. I think if you're starting in London now, it can be quite difficult because you're just performing to comedians. You don't really see what an audience is like, and you don't really see what the best comedians are like because your audience is the people you're performing with. So yeah, I was kind of thrown in the deep end a little bit.
Yeah, because it seems like you've come up in a time where it is a very changing landscape. So it used to be you get Mock the Week, you get a special, which kind of those avenues are still there, but there's a lot more kind of direct interaction with your audience, like stuff like doing the podcast or the news. Did you sort of feel that change? What was kind of like the roots through for you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what lots of people are talking about at the minute of, for me trying to get to like the next level and stuff. People talk about putting stuff online and uploading videos, and I guess that's what I'm trying to do with the podcast. But yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a shock, really. Like I'm quite sort of, I feel like a bit of an old man in terms of I don't like the idea of uploading videos all the time or doing little sketches. I just kind of want to do stand-up and then hope that leads to other things. But I'm trying to get with the times a bit more and upload video clips. And I think after I've done the Edinburgh Fringe, I'll kind of think, right, what's my version of like something that I can put up on TikTok, which I hate. I think TikTok is terrible. But I've been putting videos on there, but I think it's humiliating to have TikTok. Not if you have a good idea, but I don't have a good. I'm just putting stand-up clips up, and every time I put them up, I feel ashamed of myself.
I think it's all designed to make us feel silly. Like if you're over a certain generation, basically, if you're not like if you're over 20 these days. Okay, maybe over 30. Maybe I'm just old. But when I started like doing kind of a podcast and things like that, like there was Facebook and that was it. Now you've got about like 8 different places you've got to post things. What those 8 things are can change on a daily basis depending on what's in vogue. And they all do something slightly different, but most of them overlap a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes you can put up, I might put up a clip of stand-up that I think is good. And it might get like a few views or something, and then you look on the homepage of TikTok and there's someone doing like the most basic dance move you could think of with like 1 million views, and you just think, what is the point of any of this? It's difficult to I don't think TikTok is for us, but we've just got to try
something wacky during an interview and maybe start trying to pump my arm or something, but she just sits there and sleeps. I mean, this isn't TikTokable.
Yeah.
Work.
Yeah, you maybe need to can you give her a Red Bull or something maybe?
God. She'd just bark a lot more, I think.
Yeah. I don't know if that's classed as animal cruelty to give energy drinks for entertainment purposes.
Yeah, you do just raise the interesting point that I didn't go, no, that's inhuman. I go, I don't think that would work as a comedy bit.
Yeah. You've got your priorities.
Priorities are on there. Oh, one show I did want to talk to you about. I found it when I was kind of like going through. Now this is another thing which I found I should do when I'm interviewing a comedian is always look on BBC Sounds if a special has dropped, and you indeed disappoint. Girl stuck in basketball hoop.
Yeah.
What I love about this is you were saying about focusing before, and that kind of like I think there is a wonderful thing in the comedy mind where you can hyper focus on one thing and then other things it's kind of like hard to concentrate on, but something so wonderfully unimportant you make important, and you kind of go into the nuts and bolts of it. Where did you first hear about this story?
Well, this is something I think my mum and dad sent me a picture of the Ghoul Times with this article that said the headline was "Girl Stuck in Basketball Hoop," and I found that funny, and thought, oh, that's a funny text that my mum and dad have sent me. But yeah, when I looked in at the article, and I think the second paragraph said, "This is the third girl in as many months to get stuck in a basketball hoop and go." And I tried it out on stage a few times of just talking about it and sort of saying, like, why are they doing it? Where are they doing it? Is it 3 different girls? Is it the same girl trying different hoops? Like, and it was sort of working on stage, but I couldn't get it to work as a longer bit. But yeah, when you get to pitch things for Radio 4, there's producer Victoria Lloyd said you should pitch something to the factual department. Like, everyone's pitching comedies, so you should pitch a kind of funny documentary. And that was the only thing I had, really. But I thought it would be a funny thing to try and take that really silly news story as seriously as possible and speak to the local MP, newspapers. I spoke to someone from the fire brigade about whether they'd ever got a girl out of a basketball hoop. Spoke to I'm trying to think of the exact word, but like an escapologist, basically, a guy who could put himself through a tennis racket, and just tried to build this sort of body of evidence of why it might have happened.
And did the kind of people who were interviewing get as excited as they seem to be about this?
Yeah, well, certainly, because I was talking to a firefighter about how it always seems to be girls getting stuck in basketball hoops, and every article I'd been looking up, it was largely the girls who get stuck. So I was asking this firefighter if he could like elaborate, because he said the 2 times he's got someone out of a basketball hoop, it's been a girl both times. But he said he was with his sons and his daughter in the park one day, and that his son wanted him to put him through the basketball hoop, and then he put his son through, and then he put his other son through, and then he asked his daughter if she'd like to have a go in the basketball hoop. Oh no, I'm thinking the other way around. Sorry, the daughters go through the basketball hoop, but when the son was asked, the son wasn't interested. So he was getting really excited, going, even within my kids, it's only girls that want to go in basketball hoops. So it's an unusual thing, but yeah, women seem to be attracted to basketball hoops more than men.
Yeah, and I don't know how, like, this is something you covered on the show. I don't know how you can quite get your head stuck. It seems like basketball would be larger than the head.
Yeah, I think the problem is the hips. It seems to be the hips, or because of the awkward position of getting up on the hoop, you kind of end up sitting on it, and then and your body contorts a bit. But I think it's the height that makes it difficult, because I bought a basketball hoop without the kind of backboard, just the hoop bit from Amazon when I was doing the show to see if I could fit through it. And it is quite easy, but the net makes it quite difficult as well. The net is tighter at the bottom than the hoop. So yeah, it's not as easy as you'd think.
I mean, I bet you didn't think you would be diving into this world when you received that article.
Yeah. I didn't think there was any way Radio 4 would have commissioned it. I've pitched them other ideas in the past that I think were more straightforward. So when my agent called and said they want to do it, I was largely just thinking, are you sure?
I pitched him 2 other shows which were really great, really detailed and worked on. Then I go, oh, if you got third one, oh, basketball hoop.
Yeah, I think that's basically what happened.
It does seem to be always the way. I've heard this story before, that it's like you pitch all this elaborate stuff, and then they ask you if you've got another one, and you just come up with an idea in the room or something you've kind of written on the back of a beer mat or something, and that's always the one they go with.
Yeah, I think you can overthink ideas, and then when you're forced to rush, I think that's all your instincts. So I guess it's like when people say you should trust your instinct. The bit where someone's going, "Give me something new," and your brain panics. Yeah, I think that's where the best ideas come from. You need to try and find a way of recreating that sense of panic, and I'd probably be a more productive writer if I could get someone to sort of come into my room.
Right, you've got to tell anyone who's got a deadline, anyone who's got an exam coming up, like, how do we not procrastinate to the last minute?
Yeah, I think they
describe deadlines as making a pleasant whooshing sound as they swoop past you.
Yeah. I tend to write. I tend to need a deadline to make me do anything, which I think is okay if that's how you work and you get it done. But it does mean that the weeks leading up to that deadline are incredibly stressful. I'd love to be someone who gets things done early.
Amen, sir. Amen. And again, once you work out how.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, things which go into your comedy. So I'm always kind of fascinated what the comedians listen to. So what's the kind of like diet of comedy that you were into when you're getting into comedy, and what kind of comedians do you listen to now?
Well, it's hard to. I mean, when I started comedy, like when I was very young and I was doing sketches with my friends in like school and college when I was maybe 14, and didn't really know anything about comedy. So the only comedy we knew was like watching Phoenix Nights and Peter Kay, and that sort of like quite mainstream observational stuff. That I still have a real like soft spot for Phoenix Nights, although I think it's, in terms of being politically correct, some aspects of it have aged pretty badly. But yeah, I remember going to the Edinburgh Fringe when I was doing So You Think You're Funny, like a semi-final for that, and I was far too new and I didn't really know what I was doing. And I went to go and see Daniel Kitson doing a show, and I sort of felt like an idiot watching it because it was so funny, but it was also quite profound, and it was about like how you feel when you're falling in love, and as well as being very silly and funny and sweary, it was it felt like it was saying something, and it was structured with all these callbacks and all the sort of things that when I was just starting out I had no idea of, and I just felt like a moron who didn't understand comedy, but I was really like in awe of it. So I think he was like a really big influence, but I'm sort of getting wary of saying that now, because the more kind of doing comedy, that now kind of know Daniel and will play football with him on a Tuesday. So it's just embarrassing if he gets wind too much that I'm like, that is a big inspiration. But I think he probably knows, he's been a big inspiration to a lot of comedians, and I think he knows that, but you always try and hide it a little bit.
Are you trying to do smack talk in the football, when you're playing football, and he's going like, I've got this quite for you.
Yeah. Oh, some of the things he says during football are unrepeatable. The insults that go around the comedians' football games usually revolve around accusing the oldest person playing football of some kind of crime. I'm trying to find the most radio-friendly way of getting it across, but it's not. There was a comedian who played football one week, and I remember him saying like, "I don't really like getting insulted all the time," And I was saying to him, "Oh well, I don't know if you should come because I think that's just the vibe of this. Everyone's being shouted at, everyone's being sworn at, but in quite a good-natured way, I think."
Sounds awesome. Now you're about to do an Edinburgh run. You mentioned living in Edinburgh for a number of years. How many kind of Edinburgh runs have you done at the Fringe, though?
I guess so. I first did like a full month in 2010, doing like a package show of different comedians, and so I did like 3 years of that and 6 solo shows, and I've been up a couple of years just doing spots in between. So I've probably been there for 10 years doing like the kind of full month in Edinburgh. So this will be my 11th year, but my 7th solo show, which makes me feel very old.
Yeah, well, it seems like such an interesting thing to do because, firstly, the extreme expense. You've got to get there. It's really competitive for audiences, so you paid a lot of money to try and compete against some of the best comedians, not only from the UK but sometimes from around the world who've come over. I mean, why'd you do it? Why'd you do it, sir? Why would you do this to yourself?
Well, I don't know. That's a question I'm asking myself. Yeah, it's becoming incredibly expensive. I think it's, frustratingly, it's becoming a bit of a kind of middle class festival, or the people who I think maybe working class acts can go up there, but they have to do it in a way that is more difficult than the other acts who can afford like the best venues, the best PR, big posters to advertise their show. So you're kind of operating at a level below the people who can afford to put. It's a bit of like an arms race with what you can afford to put in. But yeah, I think I really love doing an hour. I think it's the best thing to do as a comedian, to be able to do like an hour of comedy or a tour show rather than your 20 minutes and stuff, because I think it really tests you to kind of keep someone's attention for that long and to structure it and have callbacks or to have something to say maybe, and all those things that you can't really do over 20 minutes. And just the atmosphere and like, yeah, there's a lot I like about it. I think I just worry that might be going away a little bit with how unaffordable it's getting. But yeah, it is the best thing for a comedian. I think the best place to be.
And tell us about the current show which you're taking up there.
Yeah, so the show's called Crushing, which sort of relates to two of the kind of things that are bubbling away in the background of the show, which is that my dentist told me that I am grinding my teeth chronically in my sleep. And so that's one crushing. And then the other crushing is that me and my hairdresser went to Slovakia and we drove a tank over a car. It's quite a big sentence.
Yeah. There's a lot to take in right there.
Yeah, but that's the two sort of things that are inspiring the show. So it's a show about stress, kind of centered around those two different bits of crushing that I seem to be doing.
Can you do a little bit of teasing of the Slovakian tank story?
Yeah.
I don't know why I focused on that one particularly, but
yeah. Well, so Dom is my hairdresser, but he's my friend. But we met. You just cutting my hair, and then we'd slowly talk and chat about comedy, and it went from being like haircut, go our separate ways, to haircut, then have a pint after, and then kind of scheduling in the haircuts at like the end of the workday so that we could drink afterwards, and then we'd meet up and do a bit of writing together. And he's really into comedy as well. But because I was writing the show about stress, and I saw this thing online described as the ultimate de-stressing activity, and it was driving a tank over a car after 30 minutes of smashing the car to bits with hammers. So I thought, I've got to do that. But the website is almost entirely for stag do's, and I'm not having a stag do, so I had to email them and say, what's the minimum I can do this with? Because we're not celebrating anything, we just want to mess up this car. And they come back and said, it's like a 6-person minimum. So I asked around a few friends, and they weren't up for it. Dom was the only one who was really up for it. So I had to keep going back to them and going, why can't I do it with just me and my hairdresser? And they said it would just be too expensive because the price is like split between people. But because I thought it would be a good thing for the show, and I'd sort of got this idea in my head that I couldn't get out, I just asked, well, what would the price be if it was just me by myself? How much would it cost? But yeah, so in short, I spent about £650 going to Slovakia to smash up a car.
I love the idea that you put in the email. Not me and a friend. It's like me and my hairdresser, just to make this really confusing and weird.
And yeah, I thought it would be funnier that when we turn up, the people running the place are like almost worried about us.
I mean, genuinely, that is something I think I do. Like, I know he was my friend now, but I'd write hairdresser because it would just be weirder for the person in Slovakia to understand what was happening.
Yeah, it feels funnier, like, to tell the story as a comedian to say it's me and my hairdresser smashing up a car. But yeah, he's a very good friend of mine, who I must have known almost as long as I've been in London, maybe kind of like 8-10 years or something. He's been cutting my hair, and I don't have good hair as well. It's a real thankless task for him. I've got very fine hair, but he's been doing his best for nearly a decade.
I like it. I think you've got like a lovely wild look, but it does lend itself to comedy very nicely too.
Yeah,
I think you can start it one way, you're ready for modeling, quite frankly. Another way, you're ready for comedy.
Yeah, that's my 2 career options.
Yes. It was either going to be model or comedy. I went the other way. Now, I mentioned to you when we came on, I've looked up a couple of news stories, so I thought it might be fun to have one from the north to celebrate Northern news, but also one to celebrate our radio overlords at SW20 Radio by getting a wonderful South Wales weird news story. And believe me, when you type in Welsh news stories, it does skew towards the north. So I had to look quite a few pages before I found one more Cardiff-based.
Yeah.
So we've got from the north, Tyson Fury pranks people in Morecambe with trash talking bins. Have you heard of this?
No, I haven't. But it sounds like the sort of thing Tyson Fury would do. Yeah.
It seems like he does like a bit of fun. So this was from the 5th of March, so fairly recent one. So, and by the way, it's direct quote. I'm not calling this. I assume this is his boxing nickname, but the Gypsy King, as it opens the article, again, not my editorializing, just to check, who lives in Morecambe, is installing doppelganger trash bins across the UK in the hopes of knocking out chewing gum litter, encouraging people in their bad habits of sticking it on the floor. We've got these heads of Tyson Fury is just where we're starting with this.
Yeah. I like how whenever it's someone like a boxer or a sports star, they have to add those kind of wordings of like knocking out littering. Rather than, it can't be Tyson Fury wants to help clean up the streets. It's like Tyson Fury wants to deliver an uppercut to anyone who drops their gum on the floor.
Yeah, he wants to send gum back in the corner.
Yeah. He wants to hospitalize chewing gum.
Well, it's going back to I'm so fast I make medicine sick. He just needs to spin around chewing gum.
Yeah.
I'm so fast I make your chewing gum moist. No, that just sounds bad somehow. No. So this talking trash can was showing out things like, and by the way, tossers as in to throw something before I get in radio. He was calling people tossers and dossers for throwing things on the street. But can you imagine, like, you're just you drop something on the floor, you think, oh, I probably should pick it up. Then you've got Tyson Fury coming at you, like, pick that up now.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd want to mess right there. And you've got some wonderful, like, he also, by the way, never want to miss a branding opportunity. After he's kind of finished berating them, it's like, and I'm going to bring you out an energy drink now just to say thank you for picking that up. Do you want the red one or the blue one?
Oh, he's got his own energy drink now. Everyone's got energy drinks.
Yeah. I think he's actually a man of the people. He's partnered with Poundland, it seems, or certainly it's available.
Oh, really? Oh, man. Partnering with Poundland. That's quite good for a boxer as well. For pounding, I suppose.
Poundland, I like it. I
Yeah.
didn't for marketing right in front of my eyes.
Yeah, he's a clever guy.
Like he was just going up. If you look up this news story, it's got videos from it as well. So he's getting things like, oh, and remember that's sugar-free, high in caffeine, but low in calories.
I'm going to make a note to watch this as soon as we're finished.
Yes, definitely. So it's on the Lancashire Telegraph's website. And I think a great contender for the show, by the way. And I don't go all like Cabby going, and you can use that one. But I didn't write it, so I feel like I've avoided that slightly. But yeah, the bin saw as many as 225 bits of chewing gum dropped in over the course of one day, showing the public need a little fighting talk to get them to withhold sticking the gum anywhere other than a bin. It's a lovely story.
Yeah.
So please do check that out, everyone. I'm just going to go to the other one. By the way, I will post these on the SW20 interactions page, so you can check this all out. We're just going over to my Welsh note. This is a classic. Basically, the police trying to use social media is what it is here, which always can lead to any kind of big business using or big utilities using social media can lead to slight mishaps. So, Cardiff police accidentally share hilarious Twitter message. Now, I was a bit dubious because you read this and then you think, how wacky is this? So they decided to share a shot of the deep sea divers in the area at work, and the message was, so I'm just trying to read now. Engaging with the marine community on the hottest day of the year. Thankfully, everyone is enjoying the sun and the water responsibly so far. That's the sort of beep that the teams are putting out. So basically, someone's meant to send that to some aide who's meant to edit their tweets. It's like, that's rubbish we'll say that people are putting out, and just went straight up.
People do that all the time. There's a big thing of footballers doing it when a footballer tweeted something like, can you please post something along the lines of great win today for the lads? And they would post that word for word. So it does happen a lot.
Well, I do like the follow-up tweet. They basically deleted it and replaced it with another one. But they didn't try and pretend as if it didn't exist. I like it when they've got a bit of a sense of humor about it. So the next message was, still engaging with the marine community on the hottest day of the year. Still getting used to Twitter. So it's nice. It's nice. They recognise that they
Yeah, I think it's good when people can laugh at themselves like that rather than getting too serious about it. If you make a high-profile mistake, you've got to lean into it, I think.
So just a quick little soupçon from the Cardiff News, just to show these wacky news stories can happen anywhere. So, sir, when is it you start your Edinburgh run? Let's get some plugs going here.
So maybe I'll look at my diary to make sure I do know. Yeah, so the first gig will be on the 2nd of August. And the last gig on the 27th. So there's 25 shows, 1 day off. Yeah, 2nd of August is when it starts. So all the tickets are on the Edinburgh Fringe website. You can just put in Ian Smith and it should come up. But yeah, I'm getting quite excited now. I've still got some work to do, but I've got about 6 weeks of writing. And in the past, I've usually not had a show by July, and I sort of panic, right? So I feel weirdly organized this year, which will hopefully mean good things.
And when you brought up the kind of like sheer number of gigs that you do there, what's that kind of endurance trial like, and how do you keep yourself sane going like towards the end of the Fringe?
Yeah, well, I mean, I say this like in theory because it's good to try and avoid talking too much to other comedians about how your show is going, what are your numbers, and all this kind of stuff, or reading other people's reviews. So I'm really going to try and get up and maybe go to the gym in the morning, do my show, and then if I don't have a guest slot afterwards, I'm just going to try and hang out and do non-comedy things. And I think I'm going to download Football Manager on my phone because it's such an addictive game that I'll end up playing it for ages and not thinking about. I think it's just good to think about anything other than the Edinburgh Fringe after you've done your show because it's so competitive and it's so overwhelming that I think it's quite good just to do your show, do the best you can, and then kind of forget about it because nothing else is really important.
And in the spirit of bonhomie and more kind of friendship between the comedians, are there any kind of ones you're looking forward to seeing up there?
Yeah, well, I did a preview last night with Pierre Novelli. I think he's brilliant, and his show is already very, very good. I'm excited to see Johnny Pelham, Janine Haroni. There's a girl doing a debut called Tamsin Kelly who... I'm panicking that I've got her surname wrong there, but I've got such a panic with names. But Amy is directing her show as well, so that will, if it wasn't going to be good already, like we'll make it even better. So yeah, there must be so many people.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for the recommends, and thank you very much for joining us today. Just quickly before we go, are there any other plugs you want to give? Anywhere else that people can check you out online?
Yeah, just search for the Northern News Podcast. But other than that, any social media, Twitter and Instagram, I'm always Ian Smith Comedy. So yeah, give me a follow and I'll update everything on there.
Excellent. And just some late breaking news we got from Jodie Watts. Lewis Hamilton has an energy drink deal. Available in Halfords, I'm going to guess.
Wow. Every sports person's got I'm going to try and get an energy drink. A can of Smith.
Hey, look, if nothing else, look, I don't know if you have or not, but like there's so many comedians at the moment finding out they've got ADHD. Surely energy drinks are the natural selling point.
Yeah. Or I might call it beans, and then I can have chunked out your bean as a catchphrase.
Sold. Yeah. And it's not going to get any better than that. So yeah. Thank you very much. It's been so much fun.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Very good luck on your Edinburgh run. But for now, I've been Dr. Squee. That was my show. And hopefully you've been hearing on radio as well. I've just been assuming so far. I did listen to the credit music, but... But in a world where you can be truly anything, please be kind, and we will see you next week. Hey, Ian.
Great.
Oh, can't hear you.
Oh.
Give me 1 sec. It's me. Sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay.
I cut off the radio feeds to finish that on time. And I muted my microphone because there's basically a thing which has got to send the signal into there if I want to go in both places.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, though. Yeah, when is it you're off to Edinburgh?
I'll head there on like the 31st of July or something. So I'll be up basically the whole of August.
Wow. Have an absolutely great time.
Thank you. Yeah, hopefully it should be fun. But yeah, thanks a lot for having me.
Cheers. You take care.
Thank you, and you.
Bye.
Bye.